Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. This is Jeannie Jessica, and you're listening to Secure Insights, a series of conversation with industry experts, influencers, and leaders in the cybersecurity space. So, audience, our guest speaker for today's episode is Google developer expert and open source contributor. He is the co founder of This Is Learning. His zeal and love for technology made him launch his own tech show. So, here to impart his knowledge on open source software, please welcome Santosh Yadav. Hi, Santosh. Welcome to Secure Insights.
Hey, thanks, Jenny, for the invite.
Yes. So, Santosh, we are eagerly waiting to hear from you about open source software. So, what do you have for us today?
So now, if you see in today's world, most of the what you can say products are actually companies are pushing more towards open source first. So more and more companies are actually launching their product as a public model where everyone can contribute, and then they have like support model where they are selling for the company, right? So where companies can buy probably some subscription where they will be supported. So I think it's beneficial for each and everyone. I mean, as a contributor, I can actually, of course, contribute to the project, get involved, grow with the product. Even companies have like a talent pool, right? They know who is actually supporting their product in better way, and a lot of people are getting hired due to making those efforts or making those contribution back to the product.
Okay. So, I personally want to know, Santosh, that how do you stay updated with open source tooling and technologies?
So I mean, to stay updated with all this latest things which is around the open source, right? So, but the first thing which you have to decide is what is your tech stack. I mean, I can see a lot of developers just get overwhelmed by a lot of tools which are already available there. But I would say consume the right content. That's the key. You have to focus on what tech stack you want to use and what are the different tools which you are using daily in your life, and focus on the content creators who are actually putting the content out. So I have seen a lot of course, a lot of content creators who are creating those contents. Even different tools actually create release notes every whenever they have some releases. And you can also go to the release notes on GitHub. They have like, even the commits have like good description that what this particular thing means in case they introduce a new feature. They will tell you that okay, what this new feature does. I mean, they have a lot of different processes as well. Even though it can be the tool can be open source, but there are a lot of processes which they put out there. They may have RFC, why this tool was why this particular feature is created. They may explain the solution as well, of how they resolve that particular solution. So just focus on those things. Don't try to actually, as I said, don't try to put your foot in multiple boats. Just concentrate on what you're using rather than what's out there, because there are so many tools, so many things. You will just get lost if you try to do everything.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. So, Santosh, you just mentioned about GitHub. What features within
Mhm.
GitHub can be used to build secure open source projects?
Yeah, so there are a lot of things, right? So I mean, the advantage of using GitHub is, of course, you get a lot of toolings for free. So GitHub has like its own code scanning utility. You can use code scanning for to figure out if there is anything wrong with the uh, wrong with your application. They have dependent bot which you can use to figure out in case you have some dependency which has some vulnerabilities, right? Because in today's world, backdoor attacks have become more common. It was now in earlier days it was more of the XSS attacks and DDoS attacks. Now backdoor attack has become more prominent because you see how many packages you have on NPM. It's more than 1 million packages, and there are a lot of companies, or you can say a lot of applications which are consuming those libraries. So recent example, one of the developer who actually introduced a bug because he just wanted that people should pay for his work, right? So he ended up introducing some work. Or recently, Log4j was Log4j actually got some vulnerabilities. So all this things can be actually captured if you're like putting your work on GitHub, and then you can use all these tools like dependboard, and then there are a lot of code scanning utilities which you can use with GitHub. And in case also, right, it's an advantage in case your code is available on uh, in open source. I mean, of course there are a lot of other developers who are looking at your code in case they want to get involved with your project. So of course, like having one eye on the code base which you have is always better than like 100 eyes. So if 100 people are actually looking at your code, probably they will help you more. But yeah, GitHub also gives you all these utilities which you can use. I really like depend board. So it gives you like what are the vulnerabilities your project has, what are the different packages which are being used, and they are vulnerable, and then you can just go ahead and update them.
All right. So, according to you, what are some security tools the developers should use to build secure and scalable open source applications?
So more than tools, right? I mean, it's about how much you know about security. So remember, in today's world, browsers are also putting a lot of efforts to make sure that your application is secure. But apart from that, there are a lot of other tools. For example, Sync is a company which has like its own tools. I mean, you have your own tool which is available, which you can use to secure your application, right? You can find the security issues early while like pushing your code into the GitHub, and that at that moment you will figure out, okay, these are the security vulnerabilities your application. The thing is, as today in today's world, a lot of developers don't think about security first, right? So they just want to write their code and they want to do their job, and that's it. But I think as a developer, you should also think about the security. This is where I really like Liren Tal, who is like putting a lot of efforts for lot of contents about the security, best security practices. He has some ebooks available as well. In case you want to check it out, just go to his Twitter handle. I think it's Liren Tal, and you will be able to find the books as well.
Sure, the audience will check it out for sure. And so, Santosh, does having an open source project mean that the project is secure?
No, I don't think so, because you can see like all these packages, like npm packages which I mentioned, they're open source, but there are still issues, or there are still like backdoor attacks happening via those packages. They are still open source, right? I mean, I can people can see what's written inside, but still people are actually introducing a lot of backdoor attacks into that package. So it doesn't means it is secure. I think if it's really hard to, I mean, trust even the projects in today's world. So I think you having tools around it to make sure that, okay, there are no code vulnerabilities, or there are not some packages which will have some backdoor attacks. And having I think one more important thing is, I think companies can also have like their own security scanning features, right? So to see if there are any issue with that particular project. But open source project, I mean, if of course your code is available in public, it means more people can actually um, make what you can say, more people can actually play with your code. And then there are chances, if you miss probably catching and PR, which actually introduces a backdoor attack, it will be really bad for everyone who is using your project. And it happens, right? I mean, we can see a lot of vulnerabilities being reported daily, and mm, it is happening. It's not like it's open source so it's secure.
Okay, okay. So, any main steps that needs to be considered before using open source software at your workplace?
I think in case you're using some open source projects, generally I look at few things. So in case, let's say I'm using some npm package. So first thing which I look for is how recently this project was updated. If I have like this project was updated few years back or few months back, and I see that, okay, there are some older packages which are being used, I would generally try to stay away from it. And in case you want to help, of course you can go ahead and try to update the package on your own. Have secure code scanning feature available. I mean, there are a lot of I mean, every company has this department which actually does all this code scanning for you. So they will tell you that okay, if this particular package has some security vulnerabilities or not. So I think speak to your security team, work closely with your security team if you rely heavily on your product, which can impact a lot of your customers. So having a security team really helps, or otherwise just go ahead and use the tools. All this depend on what we have. Sync our your company also has a tool to for security purpose, right? So all these tools should be available. So to avoid this, because of course you may think about a cost factor, but believe me, if some security thing happens, it will be even worse for you, because it may cost a lot of money to companies as well. This data security breaches are really common in today's world. We see, okay, all the customer data was stolen. So it is happening. So you have to be like, take the first step, focus more on security as well.
Yeah, right. And what are the issues for companies, main issues that companies face when they are using open source software?
So I think the main issue is they don't care that much about the security at start. So, for example, let's say if there is a startup, right? They will focus more on putting their product outside first, rather than focusing more on security. I mean, we have seen some examples where like S3 bucket was open and all the data got stolen. Why that happens? Because it's companies in early stage and they think, okay, let's keep pushing the code, let's keep pushing the product out, and they don't have anyone looking at the security aspects of each and every step involved in the development, whether my packages are updated or not. I have seen companies still using npm packages which are like 3 to 4 years old. No one using those npm packages. It's really important that you should identify all those packages which have high security vulnerabilities, and you should update them, because being npm being a big company, they are not, what you can say, they're not giving those advisories to you that you should get stuck with those version, right? They're telling you that okay, this particular package has vulnerability and go ahead and update it. So even in your npm, or no, sorry, even in your ci pipeline, I think you should have this audit checks, right? So npm offers audit checks, yarn offers audit checks. Even all the package managers which you use, they have audit checks available. Add it as part of your ci pipeline, see which packages have high vulnerabilities and try to get them updated as much as possible. Even though you are like done with that, have some code scanning tool available with you, and see with every pr really sorry with every pr that if your code is secure or not. Even during deployment, just see if all the doors is no, I mean all the doors are closed. For example, the example which I gave, S3 bucket, right? Keeping S3 bucket open to the outside world. Just check if all those checks are in place. Hire a security expert who can actually help you in those things. Just don't think that we have to keep pushing our product. You have to also keep tab on all these security aspects while development.
So, talking about misconceptions about open source projects, so would you like to clear a few common misconceptions that people have about open source?
I mean, so biggest misconception is open source is free. That's we see everywhere, right? So nowadays, a lot of big open source projects, they don't get money. I mean, so it started as an hobby project by someone. Then it was being used by big corporation, and they thought, okay, this is free, we should use it. But no, that is not free. Someone is putting their own time on own free time, and you are using that tool to make millions, and you are not even able even ready to give few $1,000 to that particular developer. So this is the biggest misconception we have. Every open source project need money. There are few projects they don't want money, but there are a lot of projects which needs money. For example, one of the oldest project which we have, curl, right? Or curl, which we call. So it is being, I think it nowadays it is being shipped with OS by default. And there are companies who are just, I'm not sure if you follow the uh, creator of curl, but he shares his all these funny stories where companies reach out to him and say, hey, we have a customer who is using curl and he is getting this issue. I mean, that particular organization is making billions and getting some issue and then redirecting him to a single developer who is actually working on that project, rather than, and they never paid to him and they expect him to reply. So all these stories are happening. A lot of projects are getting closed because of this, because at one point of time maintainers give up, right? They think, okay, now what, my project is being used by this $1 billion organization or $1 million organization. They are making monthly that much money, but they are not giving back to us. And this is one of the saddest thing which is going on, that companies think that is free. This is not free. I mean, big corps need to actually go ahead and support those projects if they want open source to be sustainable for longer future. It saves a lot of money to them, right? I mean, if you're using something which is available in open source, you are not building it. If you see the code base, probably it will be mostly 10K, 20K, or even in some cases 100K lines of code. Who is writing it for you? If you have to write by your own, probably it will take years, and you have to also maintain it, right? So even if you're building it internally, you have to pay some money. So not why not to give that much money or some support, using some money to the open source developers. And GitHub allows you to do that. So GitHub has GitHub sponsor program, and now it is open for organizations as well. So it means, in case your company has the GitHub subscription, and they can use now their company credit card to sponsor someone on GitHub, and they can show it as probably some expense, right? Of course, they might have something internally to support all these projects. So recently, a lot of companies have started doing it, but I expect it to be more from other organization as well.
Uh, what are the main legal issues that can arise with free and open source software licensing?
So it's not, let's see. I mean, so there are multiple types of licenses which we have. So most frequently used is the Apache one, which says, okay, you can actually take my code, copy it, and do whatever you want to. But there are code bases which says that, okay, you are free to use this, but you cannot create a copy or create a product based on top of it, and you cannot sell it. So I think if you are using some open source projects, look at those clauses or look at those licenses really carefully. They are not just there just because they want the open source project is wanted to have some license, right? They are there for a reason. So go ahead and read the license before you go ahead and use it. There are some licenses which says, in case you build some product on top of it, you have to go ahead and give your or put your code base in open. That's also one of the open source license which is available. Few years ago, React wanted to do it, that in case you build some open source framework on top of React, you should go ahead and like expose your code base in open. A lot of companies said no, we don't want to, and finally they decided to roll it back, the license clause, right? So I think read the license very carefully before you decide to take some step.
So, my final question to you, Santosh, we would like to hear some actual issues you have worked on to deal with free and open source software.
I mean, so I mostly contribute to the Angular and Nginx, and then I have a few projects of mine. So I will talk about Angular, of course. So in Angular, so generally I started contributing via docs, and of course after that, I mean, I don't used to get that much time to contribute, because working as a full-time developer and contributing to open source, both are not possible, I would say. In back in 2019, I had a lot of time, so I did it. uh, but you can say, uh, but you use that particular framework daily, right? So that was something which is really exciting for me, because I know, okay, I'm using this particular framework daily, and if I get into some issues, I know how to handle it. So I have seen myself changing from a developer who used to actually Google that, okay, if something goes wrong, and Google if I can find a solution and give up. Then I found myself at one place where, if I used to get some issue, I used to go ahead and fix up or raise a PR into actually the code base of Angular. So I ended up contributing to Angular CLI. I ended up contributing to Angular material, which is another project even contributed to Angular. And then I started like creating small tools of mine as well. So that's my experience. I mean, I'm not doing that much. I mean, I'm not doing open source that frequently now, but I'm supporting it. So I've been supporting a lot of developers using GitHub sponsors program, and it doesn't cost you much, right? I mean, $5 per month for supporting someone who is putting their own time to work in open source. I think that's a pretty big, pretty good deal, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Santosh, for sharing your journey and on open source and also taking out your valuable time and enlightening all of us. It was indeed a very wonderful time with you, and I hope you had a wonderful
Thank
time as
you.
well.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me. I really loved it. Probably we can do it sometime again in future.
Sure thing. And yeah, actually, we can't wait
Definitely.
to have another valuable session with you.